Hello and welcome to Antinatalism This Week. Before we go into updates of this week, and there are a lot of them, I just want to follow up on one of the updates from the previous week. If you remember, there was an event called A Preponderance of Injustice by David Benatar. It was an in-person event which happened on 1st of November, and I had written to them asking for an audio recording of what David Benatar presents. They have replied saying that David Benatar has confirmed that this work will be accessible to public at a later date. So let's wait and watch, and I'm hopeful to get to listen to it sooner than later. Now for the updates on Antinatalist Advocacy Conference. Two more names of the speakers were out, Amanda Suknik and John Williams. And we'll come back to John Williams later on in this video about some more updates. But that completes the list of the speakers for Antinatalist Conference. Also, the schedule was out. So if you look at the schedule, it is very crisp. It's a two-day event. It starts with day one with David Pierce, then Seb Alex, Mati Hairi. The topics are very interesting: antinatalism and selection pressure, importance of animal rights, antinatalism and extinction. And then day two is about contraception and population ethics by Oscar Horta. And then there is something about antinatalist community building, which is hosted by John Williams and Amanda Suknik, Shweta Ramkumar, and Ash Viketi talking about it. And then finally, the conference ends with a conversation with Magnus Winding. If you want to know the details of the schedule, like what are these topics about and what are they going to talk about, there is a video Lawrence has made, and I'll put the link about that in the description. Elon Musk appeared on Joe Rogan's podcast, one of the biggest podcasts in the world, and they briefly talked about extinctionism and extinctionists. Lawrence has done a very good response video to that, so I am not going to repeat all of it again over here. But I want to highlight one specific point about their conversation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play some clips from Lawrence's video to make that point. To give you a context, Elon Musk was asked why he bought Twitter, and one of the reasons he said he bought Twitter was that these extinctionist people have got hold of all information tools to propagate their propaganda. And they call this, Elon Musk calls this as a mind virus. Let's see what he says.
A philosophy that would be ordinarily quite niche and geographically constrained, so that the fallout area would be limited, was effectively given an information weapon, information technology weapon to propagate what is essentially a mind virus to the rest of Earth. And the outcome of that mind virus is very clear if you walk around the streets of downtown San Francisco. It is the end of civilization.
So, what is a mind virus? Mind virus is just an idea which replicates itself from one brain to another. And in that sense, everything in the human world is a mind virus. Capitalism is a mind virus. Communism is a mind virus. Justice movements, they are mind virus. All the ideas around justice, mind virus. Women's rights, mind virus. The idea of equality, mind virus. Women's right to vote, mind virus. Feminism, mind virus. Animal rights, mind virus. Veganism, mind virus. Pronatalism, mind virus. Antinatalism, mind virus. Extinctionism, which is slightly different than antinatalism, mind virus. So, what's the big deal? I think Joe Rogan understands this, and he tries to distinguish all of the rest of these mind viruses from this particular mind virus. Let's see what they say.
And it's not just propagating the mind virus, but suppressing any opposing viewpoints.
Yes. Well, in order for the virus to propagate, it must suppress opposing viewpoints.
Because it doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
Correct.
Yeah.
You've felt the virus.
Yeah.
Yeah. People try to cancel you so many times.
So they agree that the difference in case of these kinds of mind viruses is that it's a cancel culture. They don't entertain opposing points of view. They cancel out people. Elon Musk even says to Joe Rogan that you yourselves have been cancelled by people like these. And that is why these viruses are dangerous. Now, further down the line in the discussion, they talk about Les Unite, who is the founder of Voluntary Human Extinction Movement. Of course, Elon does not agree with him. But have a look at Elon Musk's attitude towards Les Unite, with whom he disagrees.
It's it's literally a self-description.
Do they cover him
death cult
glowingly?
was in charge of social media.
Yeah.
And still largely is at Google and Facebook, by the way.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm not in favor of human extinction. They are, and they can go to hell.
Yes.
Yeah, he can go to hell.
The next thing I wanted to say is that both of them just simply just say that guy is for human extinction and that is bad. And Elon says you can go to hell. This isn't actually an argument. Like, I know they're having a casual conversation here, but you would expect that they'd at least do one throwaway argument to at least communicate to people why they think human extinction is bad.
On the one hand, you are complaining about cancel culture, about the people who don't entertain opposing viewpoints. And on the other hand, you are telling people with whom you disagree with to go to hell. Remember, I said we'll come back to John Williams. Here it is, John Williams holding antinatalist placards out on the streets. And I think this is part of what Lawrence and others are doing as some kind of outreach about antinatalism. This snapshot where John is holding antinatalist placards is from one of those outreaches, I think, and here he is talking to a bunch of Muslims. And what they did was they had a long debate, and these Muslim people have their own channel. They put this video on their channel, and the snapshot is from that channel itself. And I think this should be appreciated of what John is doing. But the discussion, I think, derailed a little bit. What the Muslims were trying to do was the path they wanted to take was that they wanted to prove existence of God. And the way they wanted to do was that they wanted to prove that, see, universe exists and it has come into existence 13 billion years ago. Now, something cannot come into existence from nothing. Therefore, there must be a creation before that or creator before that universe. That creator is the God. Therefore, God exists. And God tells us to have more children. And therefore, your antinatalism argument is wrong, is the path I think they wanted to take. But the discussion just revolved around how something can come from nothing. And I think all of that is irrelevant to antinatalism for a few reasons. One, antinatalism is not, it has nothing to do about just existence of non-sentient beings. The universe, if you agree with the consensus of today's scientific community, came into existence 13 billion years ago. From then on until 4 billion years ago, our solar system was not there. So our solar system then came into existence from a supernova, and our earth was formed. After that, also, for many billion years ago, there was no life on earth. There were no cells, there were no self replicating genes or molecules on earth. Even after they arrived, these self replicating molecules, there had to be single celled organisms which did not appear for a few hundred million years ago. Even after single celled organisms appeared, there had to evolve multi-celled organisms where multiple cells coordinate with each other to form an organism, right? To form a plant, for example. That happened after a few hundred million years ago. And even then, antinatalist argument doesn't start. Even after that, it took a few hundred million years to actually start the first sentient life, the first ouch on the earth. That is where antinatalist arguments start getting their relevance. Before that, until all that 13 billion years ago, it has nothing to do with antinatalism. You can argue about how atoms and molecules came into being and from something or nothing, or there was a creator and so on. By the way, the arguments for creator being there are also defeated by the questions like, okay, what created the creator? But all of that is not relevant to antinatalism at all. And that is why I think the discussion got a little bit derailed about something which is not relevant to antinatalism. Nevertheless, what John Williams have been doing, putting antinatalist placards in the middle of religious people, in and of itself is very courageous thing and has to be appreciated by antinatalist community. There is an article on a website called nlc.hu, which I think is a Hungarian website. The article was in Hungarian language and I translated that into English. The article was with the title, according to members of anti-birth movement, it would have been better if we had never been born. And this is important because Hungarian government policies are what you can call as a poster child of pronatalism. And this article explains fairly accurately what antinatalists or antinatalism arguments are. Let's see what they're saying. What exactly do antinatalists claim? Why is reproduction considered problematically? Moreover, not necessarily only for humans, but for every single sentient being. Their thinking can be roughly summarized as follows. Life definitely involves suffering. Death is inevitable. Humans and all forms of life are born without consent. No one can choose whether or not they want to be born. An individual's happiness is never guaranteed. So procreation is gambling with another person's suffering. And finally, there is severe asymmetry in life between good and bad things. So existence is always harmful. And then it goes on to describe David Benatar's asymmetry, the distinction between moral rights and legal rights, and so on. Overall, I thought this was a very good article. Of the subjects which have overlaps with antinatalism, extinction and human extinction have very big overlaps with antinatalism. But we generally tend to think in binary terms about extinction, whether we go extinct or we don't go extinct, whether extinction is good or bad, depending on your point of view. But there are so many nuances to this subject that Émile Torres has written a 500 plus page book on this subject titled Human Extinction, A History of the Science and Ethics of Annihilation. He has also made a very good video explaining the nuances of this book. Now, all of that has happened in the past, not in this week. What happened in this week was there is a podcast called Vegan Voidcast, and they have released an episode talking about this subject and this book. Very good episode, very good podcast. I think they deserve many more views than what they're getting. This is Vegan Voidcast. Remember, in the last week, we discussed a paper called Will Antinatalism Solve Everything Everywhere All at Once by Juna Rasnan and Mati Hairi? Well, this week there has been a response to that paper by a newsletter called Bioedge. Bioedge is a weekly newsletter about bioethical issues. And they have written a response article. In the article, they explain the argument put forth about how antinatalism can solve everything and everywhere. But they end the article with this sentence. Isn't a bioethicist who questions the value of human life itself like a physicist who denies the existence of cause and effect, or a theologian who denies the existence of God? Without an unconditional commitment to value of human life, a discipline like bioethics is in danger of losing its coherence. I am not a bioethicist. I am not even a philosopher. And I don't understand this unconditional commitment towards value of human life. Everything that we do is to reduce suffering in some way or form. You can agree that we are doing some things to increase pleasure, but in fact, almost all of those activities, even to increase pleasure, actually are to reduce the deprivation caused by missing pleasures. We're doing everything to reduce suffering. You might even argue that what about meaning in life? The quest for meaning is also to shield ourselves from the reality of meaninglessness of life. So, if you agree that we are doing everything to reduce, eliminate, or prevent suffering, then the starting point of ethics and bioethics specifically should be to reduce, eliminate, or prevent suffering. And in that sense, I don't see why the arguments of antinatalism cannot be in the realm of bioethics. There was a similar article, actually, the same article by the same author, but in an expanded form on the website Mercator. And I think this Mercator or Mercator, however you pronounce, is another website by the same publication which publishes Bioedge. In this article, the author has expanded his views a little bit and he has expressed his bitterness towards the authors. What he says is Rasnan and Hairi believe that having children is actually immoral. Their brands of nihilism is probably the world's most dangerous idea. Nihilism is a belief that nothing matters, there is no meaning in anything, and it assigns no value to anything. Everything is valueless. Whereas antinatalists and antinatalism firmly believes in prevention, reduction, and elimination of suffering. It assigns great positive value to these three things. So, antinatalism is anything but nihilism. Antinatalism, in fact, is anti nihilism. If having children is immoral, then life itself must be evil. Love, laughter, tenderness, songs, and joy are obscenities. How do you take this illogical leap from having children being immoral to all the good things like love, laughter, tenderness, songs being bad? Antinatalism recognizes that there are pleasures in life, there are benefits in life. The only argument is that before coming into existence, that potential person is not deprived of those good things of life. What will prevent someone who truly believes this from becoming a mass murderer? Antinatalism is opposition only to creation of new life. It is not for stopping existing life, and there's a difference. Take these two scenarios. Imagine that I have a 10-year-old child and I kill that 10-year-old child. Now compare this scenario to a scenario where I don't have any children. In one scenario, I had a child, 10-year-old child, and I killed that. In another scenario, I never had any children. The end result is still the same. I end up with no children. But which scenario is morally wrong, do you think? Most people would think that killing that child is morally wrong. I would even be imprisoned for that. But would not be or should not be punished for not having any children. So there is a big difference in these two things. And antinatalism is only for not creating new life. It is not for stopping existing life. Very important difference before you accuse somebody of being mass murderers. There was an article on unheard.com with the title Can Liberals Save Themselves from Extinction by Mary Harrington. The article is about a couple called Malcolm Collins and Simone Collins. They have 3 children, all of them conceived through IVF, and they were selected for traits like IQ and happiness through gene editing, through gene selection. And Simone is now pregnant again with the 4th child. Malcolm and Simone run a website called pronatalist.org, and they are also speakers on the Natal Conference happening on 1st of December in Austin, Texas. So you know where this is going. The article talks about the worldview of Malcolm and Simone. It's a long article with many, many words just to hide their eugenistic propaganda. They are obsessed with IQ. The whole bottom line of the article is that if the high IQ people are having less children and the low IQ people are having more children, and the extreme, both on the right and left and religious people who are on the extremes of that are having more children, and the liberals are having less children, then these high IQ liberals would be selected out. So these high IQ people also should have more children. Now, the problem with this is that, okay, if high IQ people, if you're obsessed with IQ anyway, if you're a liberal, if you're a high IQ person, you value openness, education, and all that, and you think that you would be selected out, and for that reason you have more children, is that going to stop the other people having more children? Is that going to improve the situation in any way? I think it's going to worsen the situation because our system is designed to exploit these underprivileged people who are not very intelligent or who don't have access to good education and so on. So, by having more children on this side of high IQ, we are still going to worsen the situation for them. We are still going to increase the suffering of those people as well as the children we are going to bring into this world. So this is complete eugenics propaganda. I think when we are talking about ethics and antinatalism specifically, we don't even, why should IQ matter? Everybody suffers. Even the best of the lives are bad, Benatar has said. So this doesn't cut through anyway, but the article talks about this worldview, about the obsession of high IQ and liberals. And those were the stories about antinatalism that I noticed this week. Please let me know if I have missed any. Thank you.